Guys, we are going on tour. Alhamdulillah, guys. Freshly Grounded is going live. We've got a UK tour coming up, and we're so excited. This is going to be our third ever event at Freshly Grounded, and we did a tour. We did a show in London, and then we did another show in London. We did the Aldwych a few months ago, and then we thought, how on earth are we going to get bigger and better than the Aldwych Theatre? And then we thought, we got to do a tour. We got to go around all the UK. We're going to the three biggest cities in England: London, Manchester, Birmingham. Birmingham on the 17th of April. Manchester on Saturday, the 18th of April. And London, again, back at the Aldwych on 19th of April. I've been spending the last few months viewing venues, going around the country, all sorts, to make sure this is the best live event that you guys have ever been to. We're going to have special guests like always. It's going to be fun, entertaining, inspirational. We're going to have keynotes. If you want to make yourself a better person, we're going to have keynotes on how to improve parts of yourself. If you want to just have entertaining, fun time, halal time, but not a boring time, this is the place to come. If you've never been to a Freshly Grounded live event, I know you are going to love it. So do come down. You can get tickets at freshlygrounded.com/tour. That's freshlygrounded.com/tour. It's just a few days before Ramadan, so a great opportunity to get the family together, get the friends together, and hone ourselves in and get ourselves in the zone for it as well. I promise you are going to love it, and you can just check out all of the reviews of our previous live events. I'm going to get, I'm going to get someone to stick them up on the tour page. So we're going to do that, inshallah. On freshlygrounded.com/tour, we're going to stick up some of the previous things people have said about our live events. I'm going to be there. Sam's going to be there. A bunch of special guests are going to be there. And we just want to see you guys there. London, Birmingham, Manchester, freshlygrounded.com/tour. If you use the code EARLYBIRD, you get some money off the tickets. You get, I think, like 25% off the tickets or something like that. And that's it. freshlygrounded.com/tour. We're heading on tour. We're doing live events. London, Birmingham, Manchester. This episode is with a brother called Aadil. Aadil got in touch with us at Freshly Grounded, and subsequently I had a phone call with him where he kind of explained to me parts of his story. But I asked him not to tell me all of his story because I wanted to hear it live on Freshly Grounded with you guys. I feel like it's more genuine when we hear it for the first time, when it's raw. And ultimately, you can see what the episode is about and what his story is about by reading the title. But I think there's a big stereotype in my community, especially, which has some basis, in which young brothers are passing their driving test for the first time and they're driving. They want to be the loudest drivers. They want to be the fastest drivers. And this story talks about what the consequences of that could be. So I'm hoping that people listen to this story and they are able to take heed from it and they're able to take benefit from it. And if they feel like they need to change their ways from it, because Aadil had to pay the price, and he did pay the price, the full price of the law, by going to prison, but also has to live with the effect that his actions have had on an entire family as well. And so I'm very grateful to Aadil for coming down and sharing his story with us, because it's one that he hasn't shared publicly, but he wanted to share it so that it could benefit those who perhaps could hear about the consequences ultimately. We also speak about Aadil's mother and how much of an impact she had on his life, and how he was around her for her last days when she passed away from cancer, something that a lot of people have had to deal with their parents. So it resonates with a lot of us. And we speak a bit about his upbringing as well. So that's the episode of Freshly Grounded. It's a very interesting story. Like I say, I'm grateful to Aadil for sharing it with us, and ultimately hope that a lot of people can take benefit from it, and those who need to hear it do hear it, and understand that ultimately we need to be careful with our actions, and a little bit of a thrill is never worth the risk. All right, guys, let's get into this episode.
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded,
No, after that bit.
the brand new podcast
And after that bit?
by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really? Can't.
All right, cool. But we're live. We're starting now. Assalamu alaikum, Aadil.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Is it? How do you pronounce your name? Aadil or Adil?
So nowadays it's pronounced as both ways.
Okay.
Like before it used to be, mum and dad used to call me Aadil, but obviously like moving into business, dealing with different kinds of people, sometimes it's just easier to say Aadil and they're like, yeah, it's Aadil, let's just go with it. But
Okay.
it's spelt the way it would be to say Aadil,
Okay.
but Aadil is what people normally say.
Alhamdulillah. Did you used to get picked on in school like a deal or no deal? I remember people used to pick on Asians for the
Sometimes
maddest
I
reasons.
get that, but I've been called all sorts of funny names. Even someone called me Azkaban once and Aladdin.
Oh my gosh. I got people used to call me like them times there was the Basil Brush.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they used to like, because my name is like, the thing is, my name in like Urdu you pronounce it Faisal, yeah, but in Arabic it's Faisal, like with a Saad.
Yeah.
But obviously, being brought up Pakistani, my family, if we were speaking like Punjabi or Urdu, they would be like Faisal. So the like direct English translation of Faisal is like Faisal.
Yeah.
So Omar, if you hear my brother, he still calls me Faisal rather than Faisal, which is like the correct way.
Yeah.
So in school, people would call me Faisal, which rhymes with Basil Brush. So I wouldn't get picked on, but like, it would be like a little thing. I'd hate it.
It's a bit annoying,
It's
isn't it?
annoying, man.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah,
But it's just a little tick in the back of your mind and you're just like, all right, okay.
yeah, I'm gonna hit you one day.
Yeah, no problem. I'll let you have that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Fair
you
enough.
okay? So you went your schooling, was it was your primary schooling here, or were you born here?
Yeah.
Born
in the
here,
UK.
and then
Yeah.
at what point did you go to Pakistan?
So born here, and then at the age of 12, we went over to Pakistan with my family. So me and my 3 brothers and my parents decided that we'd go and live over there for a while.
And you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest of 4, yeah.
Okay. And I want to hear the rest of the story. So you decided to go to Pakistan,
Yeah, so
and
we
you're
went to
12 years
Pakistan.
old.
Dad's obviously come over at a young age. He's obviously done his graft. But someone that was from Pakistani descent came from obviously Pakistan. He wanted us to experience that life. He wanted us to see that raw experience of life rather than what you get over here where things fall in your lap kind of thing at 9 times out of 10. So we went over, enrolled in school. Because we'd been going to Pakistan like quite a bit over the years growing up.
Whereabouts in Pakistan you guys?
Jillam.
Oh, we're from. Oh, we had that discussion, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're from a town just outside of Jillam, a village just outside Jillam.
Yeah.
So we just tell people Jillam.
Yeah, because Jillam's a district as well.
Right.
So Jillam's like a city, and then it's like how Berkshire is. So it's a
Okay.
county as well.
I
So
see.
when people sometimes say Jillam and you're just like, oh, what part of Jillam? It's like, Khas Jillam. It's like, are you in central? Or then they're like, no, village. And like, okay, so you're part of that district. So yeah, when I lived out there, enrolled into school, my mum and dad had this desire that they wanted their son to take something from this whole journey. And they wanted him to do something exceptional that would make them proud. So they set about getting my younger brother, third younger brother, Ali, into a madrasa. And 13 months later, he was Hafiz Quran.
How much? In 13 months?
Yeah.
From Alif Bata? No.
So at a very young age.
Bro, so what I'd say is, this lead, if you touch that too much, what happens is that it starts
Does it distort the sound?
a bit. So use the cage.
I've got
So you can
you.
move this cage as much as you want and lift it up a bit so that your mouth goes straight into the mic. Otherwise, it doesn't pick up things great.
That's cool.
Sorry, bro. So 13 months in, so he went from not memorizing Quran to being a Hafiz in 30 months.
Yeah. So
Oh, my barik.
there was a struggle. I know my parents had a struggle. He had a struggle. He didn't go to school for a whole year. So they took him out of school. Whilst he went to madrasa, he'd go at 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd come home at night. And he'd wake up again 5 o'clock in the morning. And he'd go back again. And he'd done it for 13 months.
And all he's doing is memorizing Quran. Wow.
That's it. And then 13 months later, this boy that's like merely 9 at the time. 10, max. He's, he's a Hafiz Quran. And it's like, my mum and dad are proud because, that is really what the aim was. The aim of the game was, let's achieve something from this journey of ours. But at the same time, we were involved in school over there. It was a really good experience. Like, not being here so much, I felt that being in an environment where they take their education very seriously because they don't have much else to go on in that country. So education is paramount. people that are poor, people that are rich, they're all drumming into their kids that this is what you need to do. If you want to survive in this country, if you want to make it out of this country and get something in your life, then education is what you need to be doing. And back then, we're talking about 2000s. Pakistan as a country was still developing. Obviously, it's a third world country, but it wasn't as developed as it is today. The economy wasn't as strong where people have got, so wealthy. So that was probably something that my parents wanted us to experience at the same time. Education, lifestyle, it was very different.
Did you enjoy it? Or you did?
Yeah. I always say to my friends and even my family, that was like my golden period in my life, because you're living in a country which you're acquainted to, you know about it, but you're actually belonging somewhere else. So over here, when you're here in the UK, people use terms to describe you in a inappropriate and unkind manner. But over there, it was also the same thing where they would be like, "Oh, the Goria here,"
So you never feel like you fit in either place.
It's like you're out of place here and out of place there as well, because over here they'd call you a certain term.
Yeah.
And over there they were like Gore. So it was
so
always
either Paki or Gore.
Yeah, and he was like,
I never just added.
And it was like, all right, which box do I actually tick? What is my where do I stand kind of thing. But it was a beautiful journey. I'm not gonna lie. I'm proud of it. I think my parents were proud of it. I think we took so much from that whole experience. Secondary school education was something that I did over there. So I completely skipped that block period of being in secondary school over here in the UK. So I didn't experience anything that someone would experience on a day-to-day basis going to school here in the UK. I did my primary school education. I did 1 year of secondary, and then I went over there.
In hindsight, do you think that it's better that you did it in that way? Do you feel like you were saved from some of the fitting involved with going to high school here, or not? In hindsight, because you kind of, because you've been there, done it.
Yeah, being completely bold. Yeah, I mean, I didn't find myself under peer pressure. I didn't find myself having to be a certain way, because you're not being encouraged to do that abroad. In them countries, they don't have them circles. They don't have them, them groups of people, or them, that pressure that a person has when they're in an environment. Over there, it's about being competitive in education. It's about who's getting the most marks at the end of the day in their exams, or who's excelling. Whereas over here, we get caught up in social presence, what's cool, what's in, what's relevant, brands, what clothes are you wearing today, who's got an MP3 player, who's got the best phone. So we're caught up in that kind of stuff here. Stuff like tobacco, like I don't smoke, so tobacco, narcotics, intoxicants, I've never done any of that. And I think maybe being away from that environment probably helped me. I mean, it's an individual thing anyway. It's a choice. It's for us to decide whether we want to take a path and indulge in something or not. But also at the same time, if you find yourself that you're not in a certain environment, then the breeding ground isn't there for you. And
your environment makes a huge difference.
And it makes a big difference. And even your friends, your circles, the people that are around you, if they're concentrating on trying to get somewhere in life, build a future for themselves, they don't really care about how cool they need to be, or, what clothes they're wearing, or, whether if they're smoking a cigarette, it's going to look cool in front of people. They're more concerned about what their parents are going to say, what their exams are saying at the end of the term. So the mindset's very different. You go home and an hour later you're going for tuition. So you're not really getting that opportunity. Other than that, you're going to go gym, you might play cricket, you might play football. So you're in a very sort of raw environment. And that, I think, almost keeps you protected, I'd say, in a way, that you're not really finding yourself indulging in the kinds of practices and sort of norms that have now been created in obviously within the UK where we live today. So I think on that end, I definitely feel like I was away from that.
How amazing is the sacrifice of parents where they pick up their whole life and move just for their child to have a stronger connection with the Quran? It's just shocking, the what a parent would do for their child, and they don't think about themselves. I mean, you obviously know what that's like as well.
You couldn't have said it better, because I know like the struggles that my parents went through, and my dad's journey, especially from him living in Pakistan to living in Oman, where he did construction work, then coming over to the UK, and his struggles within his work, and to where he got to at that stage. He was actually at his peak period in his life. He was at that period where he could have gone in any direction and excelled so high that, you know, he could have been really, really, you know, well off, and, you know, he could have had everything that he would have wanted. But I think his background and his struggles in life kept him real, and he wanted us to experience that same reality that he'd experienced in his life. So I think for him to sacrifice that, and then for my mum to support him on that same level, let's make that transition, let's go over, let's spend some years over there, let's see what it gives us. And as a family, like, you know, there's so many things that you learn from such an experience. Things like your own language, you know, things like the difference between Punjabi and Urdu.
What language do you got? What's your first language?
So obviously, like, speaking English, and then speaking Punjabi at home, and then as you're growing up, you're mixing with society. So Urdu is the cleaner, smarter, cooler language where, you know, you can, you know.
I prefer Punjabi, you know.
You know what?
Because people are so anti-Punjabi, like it's not cool. So I'm like, nah, man. So when I speak Punjabi, bro, I go fully like village of Punjabi with it.
But do you know what? That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. I think even being proud of the fact that you want to even roll that, you know, language off your tongue is amazing, because people don't want to do that nowadays. But I love the fact that I can be versatile in that place now, because there's times when I'm dealing with customers in my workplace, and there's a customer and I can see from his appearance like who he's like. So I can speak to him Punjabi and I can say, you know, would you like this or would you like this? And then they're looking at me thinking, okay, this guy understands me. So instantly I've breaking down barriers. Then if I come across someone like an auntie or something, and I speak to them in Urdu in a polite manner, again, they feel that very comforting, and the fact that they've just been greeted or dealt by, you know, with a person that understands them and hasn't gone over the top. And then obviously the usual stuff, you can just, you know, mix it all up if you want.
My dad, we asked my dad recently why he taught us Punjabi growing up, or why my parents taught us Punjabi growing up. Obviously, part of the reason is because they're Punjabi, but a lot of Punjabi parents have taught their children Urdu and not Punjabi. Yeah. And so we asked my dad, and he said the reason is because if you learn, and this might be a controversial thing to make if people are listening who are like Urdu speakers, but he said if you learn Punjabi, then what happens is that it's a lot easier for you to be able to speak Urdu. But if you only learn Urdu, it's very difficult to speak Punjabi. And bro, I see that like so many people I know have been brought up on Urdu, and even though they understand Punjabi, they can't speak it, or they might even sound a bit like they're almost mocking it, but they're not. They're just not, like they have to try and become harsher with it, and it's just, I was like, why are you doing that?
They've put so much effort and energy into constructing a sentence, whereas if you've learnt it like you've said, you got your Punjabi as your grounding, and then your Urdu is just the icing on the cake. You know, it is much more easier, and I second that, because that's how we grew up. We grew up speaking Punjabi in our house. I remember my dad used to be like, if we were speaking English, he'd be like, don't speak English.
Same with mum and dad,
Punjabi is the language. Let's speak Punjabi right now, because you can speak English out in the world. You know, we have different environments. Your home environment is your home environment. It's completely different to your outside environment. So if you can make it a bit of a niche, I think you've got an advantage. And I think if parents that still create that environment for their children, I think they know what they're doing. So
what ni'mah to like be able to understand and speak different languages. It's so, you could, how many times in your life you reflect and you think, wow, I've been able to utilize the fact that I speak many languages, and it's nice to know that you can. Yeah, man. I want my son to be able to speak Punjabi and Urdu, but
inshallah,
it's difficult, bro. It's not happening.
Not in today's day and age. It's such a challenge.
I'm speaking to him, but I want him to learn Arabic. Like, so I'm speaking to him in like 4 different languages, and it's English. English is the one he's gonna learn, bro, because that's the one I speak to him most often. That's what his mum speaks to him in. So it's gonna be too difficult, man. But it's a shame that I've already given up after 3 months.
But I tell you what would be good though is like staying in touch with our roots, staying in touch with our culture, staying in touch with because our heritage is Pakistan,
Yeah.
making that trip over there, you know, then because what's happening is they're then in a different environment, then they're over there, then they've got no choice, you know, in the sense that the people that are going to be interacting with them are all going to be like Punjabi, Urdu speaking people. So they're going to be in their mindset, then they're going to have that thing of, okay, there is a world out there that only speaks that. So I also need to be able to speak that as well.
So,
you know, if you can't speak that, then you've got that barrier straight away.
So you did your high school years in Pakistan, and then you come over back to London.
Yeah.
At what age?
Came back at 17, I think it was. So I did
How old is
5
it that you're
years.
now?
So now I'm 32.
Okay. So you came over at 17.
17, yeah. So I decided that once I completed my education, I did my O-levels, which is... they used to do the O-levels in the UK, but I abolished them because they were so tough. So then they obviously downgraded to GCSEs.
Okay.
But in Pakistan, they still do O-levels.
Even now?
Oh,
okay.
So obviously, initially it was metric, which was the Pakistani equivalent syllabus. But then obviously, to take it another step further, they started offering like O-levels syllabus courses in some schools. Came back in 2005, a year early, because my family had still stayed over. They were still there, the rest of them. And I just felt like I was at that point in my life where I wanted to know what I wanted to do in life. I was 17, 18, you know, what direction is my life going in? And I'm thinking, you know, I'm from the UK, I'm British, you know, I belong there. Let's just go and see what happens. So I came back. I stayed, because my parents were still in Pakistan, my brothers were still living there. So I came back and started living with my family. So I was staying at my khala's house. And I enrolled into college. And I went and enrolled, and the guys initially were like, look, because you've
So people who don't know, Khala is your mum's sister.
My mum's sister, yeah. And I'm just at college now, and I'm enrolling into this course, and it's like a GCSE law pathway. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's just go with it, you know. We'll do a bit of law, we'll do a bit of business communications, a bit of social science, you know. We'll get through the year, we'll get to our A-levels, and we'll see, you know, university and all the rest of it. So I did a year of GCSE in the law pathway, and then I continued into my second year, and I started my first year of A-level law and government and politics and sociology. I think at that point, I started to switch off, I'm not going to lie, because, you know, I don't think my interest was completely there. I think as a person, I was getting the understanding that I'm more of a practical person rather than books and education and the rest of it. So in 2006, my whole family came back, and whilst we were in Pakistan, because my dad had started some takeaway businesses in the UK in Reading, he decided that he wanted to do the same in Pakistan. So he set up the similar kind of setup over there in Islamabad. It was a very challenging period for him, because doing business abroad in places like Pakistan, especially in Islamabad, is a very risky and bold move, because people out there are very shrewd. They're sat there waiting for someone to come along whose pocket they can just completely rip off. So he had an experience, and he decided that, you know, it's best to stick to what you know in the areas that you know. So he came back to the UK, and one of his businesses that he'd been running, he'd leased out. So we almost weren't doing much. So we came across an opportunity where we came across a location, and I was like, look, this is a really good site. We should do the same concept here. So he decided to open a takeaway by the name of PFC, which was like our second branch in Reading on Wokingham Road. And I was still at college at that point, and I just felt like I want to be a part of this journey that's now starting, you know, PFC, because we've grown up and my dad used to do it himself, and now we can do it with him. So less interest at college, and then I thought, yeah, you know, I'm going to work. Like, let's start working, you know, let's go and, you know, get involved. Because within our communities, especially in the Pakistani community, people are looking at you. They're looking at what you're doing. They're looking at who you are, where you're from. You know, they want to judge you a certain way. They want to know what your level is, so that they can give you that respect on that level.
It's weird, isn't it? It's such a just a backwards way of
Completely.
Or thinking of like, yeah, and you see it sometimes with the marriage game as well. Like when people look to marry someone, and then it's like what like caste are they from? What do
Yeah.
their parent like? What level are they
Completely.
at? I remember. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Tim Humble, but it might have been someone else who was giving an Islamic lecture, talking about this exact thing. But like, oh, so you're from this caste? Oh, they're farmers. Don't go. Like, we're not going to marry into that. And it's so bad.
Yeah. I think we've obviously, like, I was just having this thought the other day that so much is man-made today. Like, you have concrete things, i.e. religion, faith, laws, policies, rules. But if you move away from all of that, there's so much man-made stuff that's actually dictating a person's life. And even the whole casting system, like, it's dividing families, people are losing lives, people are ruining their relationships, don't have the power to decide their own futures or even have a say in their own futures based on that one concept. And it's like some people in Pakistan still hold on to that. Some people have moved away from it. They're more liberal and neutral in that sense. And even in this country, I think there's a north-south divide. I might be slightly putting it out there, but I feel like there might be a north-south divide where parts of the country don't really bother too much about that anymore, and parts of the country are still stuck in their ways, and they're still going along that same journey that people were going along back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So you're right in what you're saying.
I think we all have a level of like thinking that where we're from is the place to be, and I think that's normal. Like even with I remember when you're brought up here and then you see someone from outside London, you're like, "No, we're from London. Like, it's the big city in the UK. That's where we're from."
Yeah.
So there isn't any of that, and I suppose you have to control it, and it can get harmful,
of course,
especially when it starts affecting, like you said, our lives and relationships and stuff. So you're now 18 years old, and you decide that you want to have a more active role in PFC.
Yeah.
But just to understand, at this point, had you got your driver's license? Because did you do the thing that most of us did, is when you turn 17, that's it, I'm taking my test, I'm doing my thing, taking my lessons.
The thing is, like, I actually learnt to drive in Pakistan.
I was going to guess that you was going to say that, because everyone, like, I learnt to drive when I was like 14, 15.
I learnt to drive in a very unorthodox way, should I say, in the sense that, we're living in a country that doesn't have many laws that dictate people. They don't live by the rules or anything. People just make up what they want to make up. They'll make 6 lanes out of 2 lanes. So I was just telling someone the other day, some family friends, I goes, the first time I ever drove a car, my parents, no one was home. A family friend had left their car at our house. I rolled the car down the drive, and I started it, and I put it in first gear, and I drove down the road. I got down the road, and I couldn't turn the car around because I couldn't get into reverse. So I got out the car, I physically turned the car around, I jumped back in, and I drove back home, and I parked it up again in the same place, and no one ever knew. So moving on.
How old were you then?
15, 16, if
That's
that.
so funny.
And then we had a driver, so obviously he'd drop us to school in the morning, he'd pick us up in the afternoon. And then one day my dad's brother said to my mum that I saw Aadil and he was driving the car. And my mum goes, that can't be, And he goes, no, I saw Shira and he was sitting in the back. That was our driver's name.
No.
So I come home that day and my mum's like, what were you doing? And I goes, what are you on about? And she goes, I've just been told that you were driving. And I was like, yeah, I just had a little drive, it wasn't too much. And I was like, you can't be doing stuff like that. But obviously we used to leave home and we had our driver driving. By the time we've got down the road, we'd be like, listen, you get in the back.
And he would listen to you.
Yeah, I'll drive.
What an awful man. Have you always had a fascination with cars?
Yeah, so I was quite into cars. I was into cars.
Like a lot of Asian guys.
Yeah, I think it's it is probably the norm for Asians in that sense that they have an association with cars. There's
definitely that stereotype.
It's like a commodity kind of thing. It's presence. It's like respect.
Yeah.
People want to look at you and be like, yeah, you've got that kind of car. I'm going to give you a certain level of respect. It's crazy.
I've never understood it, bro.
I know for a fact that I could be in a car and no one would notice me and wouldn't even blink an eyelid. But if I was in a very different kind of car, all of a sudden they'd want to know me.
That's true.
And it's like, you don't want to, like, you probably don't even care what car you're in or what you want from that car. It's just getting you from A to B. But how you're being perceived from what you're driving, one, people are going to judge you. If you're driving something that's not so good, they're going to look at you and be like, oh, this guy's nothing. You know, we don't need to know him. He's not on our level. But it's like you're being misjudged in so many different ways,
Yeah.
you know? So cars is a big thing, and I was definitely into cars. And then when I was here in the UK, I think it was 2005. Obviously, my parents weren't here, so I thought, let me buy a car on my birthday. You know, it's December. I'm living like at my khala's house, and I don't really have someone that's going to really like grab me by my ear and be like, listen, you ain't doing this. So I've gone out with my cousins and I've bought a car for myself, and I've got a provisional license, but now I'm just driving to work. So I was doing a part-time job, working in like a gadget shop. And I remember driving down on, it's around Christmas on King's Road in Reading, and I must have been doing about 35, 36. And there was a marked police car parked up with a gun, and it's obviously caught me going over the limit. So it's pulled me over, and it's like, what you doing? What's your name? And obviously I didn't have a license or anything.
Oh no.
So it's like, okay, well, you know, you're going to get 6 points and all the rest of it. So I ended up getting 6 points on my provisional license. And after that, I thought to myself, like, I can't mess around. Like, I want to drive. I enjoy it. So, you know, I passed my test in 2006 in June. And I actually went to Glasgow to buy my first car.
Oh really?
Yeah. It was a Honda Civic. It was one of
The-
them
was
coupes.
it? Oh, was it the?
Like a 94, 95
Yeah, I know the
model,
one you're talking
you know.
about. I know because we used to have that as our family car.
So I went and got one of them. It was a coupe, and it was like a turquoise green color, and it had like a spoiler and tinted
Oh no.
windows, a bass box in the boot, and you know, it was like cool, you know. And I drove that around for a bit, and then obviously moved on to a slightly bigger car and stuff. Because you know, as a guy, you're thinking like, you know,
I want more presents.
I need a good car. Yeah, I want people to look at my car and be like, yeah, that's the guy, kind of thing. So I had that, and I passed. And obviously at that point when I dropped out of college, I was driving, so I was going to work and stuff, and family business started. So it was, you know, vital that I had transport, because
So what was the bigger car then?
it's going to sound crazy, but yeah, it was actually a Toyota Avensis.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what a Toyota Avensis
But
is?
I'm really bad with cars, bro.
No way.
But I'm not into
It's
cars.
a Jap, bro. It's nothing. Really and truly, it's not even a car. It's like a taxi driver's car.
Okay.
But it was weird because it was like a really nice car. It had alloys on it. It had levers. It had sat nav. It had a spoiler. It had side skirts, fog lights, sunroof. You know, it looked like a really nice car. So all of a sudden, I'm just whipping this car around like at 18, 19 years old. You know, like seats sort of like semi back, and you know, you're just like, yeah.
I can imagine.
You
I
know?
can picture you, bro.
You know, it's just like you're thinking you're up there. You're on
Mm.
K2 or something right now, because you know you got yourself a nice car and stuff, and people think you're cool. So you just want to be cooler. So then you start playing into it.
Mm.
Then you're gonna maybe want to drive a certain way, or you're gonna drive past someone, and you want them to know that you're there.
Yeah.
So you know it starts it's like a building block around that one sort of thing that you're now fascinated with, you know.
Did you realize at the time how dangerous of a feeling that is?
No.
You don't realize that at the
No.
time.
I think because I'd inherited the whole concept of driving abroad, over there people live life on the edge.
Mm.
People generally are quite fearless in the sense that their day-to-day living is just so up there that, you know, at any point anything can happen, but they're living it to the max. So even when you're driving out there, like, you know, you just want to get to your destination as quickly as you can.
Yeah, but I feel like that's what the difference is between somewhere like back home and here, in that, let's say if there's people back home are driving in that fashion, it does seem to be because, yeah, they perhaps are just trying to get to where they need to get to as fast as they can, and they're a bit careless with it. Whereas here it seems like a lot of people are doing it because, like you said, the ego enjoys people going, wow, that's his car, oh, that's a loud car, like, and
Yeah.
the ego enjoys it. It's
Yeah.
like, it's almost like there's two different
Yeah.
reasons, which of course
Yeah.
ultimately the same thing, it results in the same thing, but
Completely. I think what it is because we come from our sort of like class levels, is the fact that we need things to feed our ego. So things like your cars, your brands, your clothes, your wealth, your friends, your family, you know, your presence, all of that is something that is feeding you, and you're thriving off it. So, you know, it has a big impact on how you're developing as a person.
yeah, but that's such a good like explanation that I haven't considered before, is that in that you're brought up, and when you're brought up in humble beginnings and you see your family struggling, if you have a status symbol that shows that you're not struggling, it's like, well, I haven't experienced this before, and it's like, it's defeating the insecurity that you might have, that people might perceive me. I know really that my family's grinding and it's not easy.
Yeah.
So if I wear this designer clothes, if I have this car, I might get that respect that I've never tasted before.
Completely.
Yeah, I've never thought about it in that way, man.
I think it's just how it's what angle you look at things sometimes. And I think sometimes it's just another person's conversation that gives you a completely different angle to something. And it might be the fact that you've seen it your whole life, but someone's perspective, just because it's maybe at 5 degrees slightly different, all of a sudden you found a different meaning.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems to make sense in terms of like psychology and stuff. The concept of covering up your insecurities by like trying to attract people with what you think that they respect.
And even now, if you look at today's day and age, you know, we have that term keyboard warriors. You have so many people on the social platform that have a voice, but in person, how much presence do they really have?
Yeah, so they try and,
you know, their macho-ness is coming across on a platform, because they're not having to do it personally, they're not having to do it in person, but they're doing it in a way where they feel that they can have a protection barrier for themselves. So they build that little wall around them and are like, I'm safe here now, and from here I can, you know, get my energy out to people and show them that I'm a certain type. But when you come across them in person, you're just like, do I even know this person? Is this the same person that I've actually been interacting with? Or is this the person that you've seen, you know, be a certain way? So, you know, even on that level, I think there's so much that can, you know, be said.
It's very dangerous, man.
Completely.
So you've got a fascination for cars. You're now like 18, 19 years old. You're working in the family business. You're always traveling to and from work.
Yeah.
You've found what you feel like is like, you're starting to maybe get your like, what drives you, for lack of a better term, excuse the pun, but in that you want to build a family business. Equally, side by side to that, you're loving cars, and so where does this journey take you?
So I think with work, I was probably certain that I didn't want to go to university, so I dropped out of college. I'm working, but at the same time I was working in I had different jobs as well. I wasn't always at PFC, because working in a family business is very challenging, and the people that are probably going to watch this and listen to this will probably be able to concur that sometimes when you're working with your own family, because it's a personal relationship, you can't find the boundary of where it's personal and when it's business. So you're trying to deal with a business aspect of something, but you're being treated like you're on a personal level. So, you know, there's a conflict of interest where you're struggling, because you're trying to find how do you address a situation without going overboard or not going overboard. So I used to find myself in situations where I would go and work elsewhere at the same time. You know, I had jobs in places like Asda, B&Q. I worked in warehouses. I did deliveries for Pizza Hut. You know, I did like some telemarketing jobs. You know, it was all a part of just having something to do, working, being involved in a job, learning from that job, and just being proud of the fact that I'm constantly engaged. You know, I'm not idle. I'm not just sat around, you know, but I'm working towards something. And with my journey with work, as I progressed, you know, I just found that I felt like myself, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. So I wanted to be in situations where, You know, I can do something and feel good about the fact that I've done something for someone, or make someone feel good about a situation. And I think when you're getting into a vibe like that, you're almost forgetting the fact that, you know, you're not really doing a job right now. You just want to do something where you can help or be of help to someone. And that is what you start concentrating on. And with our business, in that sense, it was more about community presence. It's about being a pillar in your community. You know, your doors are open, people are coming in, you're building links, you're building relationships with these people. You see them on a daily basis, you're working with them. So they're seeing you grow every day because you're there in that one place, and they're coming in, and they're coming in, and they're coming in. And as you're getting older, they're seeing you develop as a person. And I think from that whole journey, I just knew that I wanted to be in a situation where I'm working, where I'm there in that work, but it's not just like an office job where I'm just shut off from somewhere, or I'm limited to doing something. I can just and in the spur of the moment, if someone rings me, and I could be like, all right, cool, I'm coming, let's go. You know, it's almost
like almost like owning your time, right?
Yeah, but also I'm gonna get on a whim. It's almost impulsive. And I think that's a trait that you develop, of being impulsive, where you just want to do things off the cuff. You want to be in positions where you can just tackle a situation off the cuff. You know, it's just happened, let's get on with it. You're in a fast-moving environment. When you're working in takeaways and restaurants and fast food businesses, you don't have time. You don't have time to think. You just need to act as quickly as you can. If a customer's orders 5 minutes late, the customer's not happy. You need to address that. You need to address service, staff, quality. You need to satisfy the customer. So constantly you're in your head, you're engaged, and you're continuously just working. And I think for me, it was just like, work was one of them things where I just really enjoyed doing it, and I was just like not completely motivated by money, if I'm honest, but by achievements.
Seems like you enjoyed the thrill of like succeeding, and then what's the next thing?
Satisfaction, you know, that thing of knowing that I've got some goodness out of this, and, you know, I've been of good use somewhere. And I think that has probably been like a testament to my parents, because they didn't raise us in a way where we became completely money hungry or driven just for the sake of money, because sometimes with that you lose your morals, you lose your values, and, you know, you almost forget. And I think there's things where you have opportunities in life, things come into your life, there's things that are put in your path, and then you have to decipher, you know, whether you're taking the right or the wrong step. But the most important thing, that if I just go back to Pakistan, is that what I learned was self-respect. We work so hard in our lives to gain respect, to earn respect, that we never really question, how much self-respect do I have for myself? You know, how do I carry myself where I'm respecting me, not you respecting me? Because in essence, if I've got so much respect for me, I don't have to worry about anyone else respecting me, because it will automatically come because of how I carry myself. But if I don't know how to respect myself, how can I work so hard and put so much energy into something where I want other people to respect me, but you haven't even learned what it is for yourself, but you want it from other people.
Yeah, you're almost like teaching people how they should treat you. By treating yourself bad, you're saying it's okay to treat me bad.
Yeah. So that was probably one thing, and I think that was one thing that has most dictated my life as I've progressed. So obviously we've reached that stage of work. I even went and took I bought a little business. It was like a mobile valeting business, because I enjoyed cars. So I thought, you know, I want to do something with cars, you know. And I came across this little quirky setup. It was called Quick Detailer, and it was just basically waterless spray. You weren't using hose pipes. You just have a bottle, like a 500ml bottle or a litre bottle. You mix it with water. You spray it onto the car. You get a microfiber cloth and you wipe it down, and the car's clean. So it was quite a cool little thing. You know, I had a little smart car. I used to drive around. Got these little like contracts from people, and I was like, yeah, this is really good. Like, I'm enjoying this. And I was like around cars, and I'm cleaning cars, and I was enjoying it, you know, because I enjoyed doing that. And then my dad had a bit of a scare in his health. And then I had that reality check, and I was like, you know, I need to do more
For the family business?
For the family business, I need to come back to this, because this is us. This is what we've always been. This is who we are. This is our identity. You know, we're known from this business. You know, we're known from our family kind of thing. So, you know, I came back into it, and I was running the business, and it's not easy. You know, when you're trying to run a business, you're making a sacrifice. You know, you're putting things on hold in your life for that sake of that business or that project. And I just remember day in, day out, it just be work. And that's all it is. You know, you're not switching off. Every day your brain's churning constantly. You're going home, you're still sleeping, but you're still thinking about work. You feel restless, you don't really have much peace because, you know, there's long hours, you're involved constantly, you're there, you're plodding along, and you're just trying to find a balance in how you can make it work for you as a person. But I think when I got to 2012, I had a good year at 2011 with work, with the business. But when I got to 2012, I just felt like I'd lost my way a little bit. I wasn't really sure what's going on in life, you know, like you start questioning what's happening. You start questioning what's going to happen in your life, because, you know, I was about 10 years ago, so about 22, you know, 22, 23. Actually, I was older than that, wasn't I? It's about 24, actually. I'm just like trying to figure out in my head, you know, am I just going to be at a chicken shop my whole life, or am I going to do something else? And you're just looking for opportunities. You're looking at, you know, other avenues. What can you do? But at the same time, because we're so competitive as people within our own culture and environment, we don't just want to copy someone else. Like, we want to be different. We want to be perceived different. We want people to be like, yeah, he's done something, or he's in a certain place right now. And no one's going to turn around like, oh, but he just copied me, or he's just doing what everyone else is doing, kind of thing. So I was just like slightly lost in that aspect. And then obviously that sort of leads on to, you know, our...
So that was 2012.
Yeah.
And is 2012 the same year that the crash happened?
Yeah.
So you're in your job, and then you're starting to mentally just feel a bit like lost.
Yeah. I think lost is probably the right word, because you're still growing as a person, but
you're young, man. You feel young. You feel like I've got all
there's
this to
some
give.
energy. But it's like you're in space kind of thing, because you don't really know where you're going. You don't know what your direction is, but you want to get somewhere. You want to get to a destination. But because you're not there yet, you're not really sure what you're doing with yourself. You're not really sure. And I think what happens is, when you have that distraction in your mindset, you start to lose concentration. You start to forget that there's certain duties, responsibilities. You have to be a certain way. You have to carry yourself a certain way. You have to channel your energy and whatever you're feeling a certain way. And I think at that point, I was at that stage where I was a bit lost. And even with like Deen and stuff, like for me, Iman is such a thing that I know it fluctuates.
Of course.
I know a person's Iman fluctuates, because I've been in that situation where I know where I've had the highest Iman and I've had the lowest Iman. So I know that there's a scale.
How was your Iman in this year, 2012?
It wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. Because you're at that age where you're not really concentrating on Deen. You're not concentrating on religion. You know, that's not important for you at that point. You know, importance is about cementing your place in your family, foundations for your future, you know.
I think that also you think at that age that, because I'm 24, I'm gonna live a lifetime, so I've got time to give myself to the Deen. but that's not now. Right now,
No.
in my prime,
Yeah.
I used to think like that. I used to have 40 as the number. Like when I hit 40,
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch myself and start focusing a bit on the deen,
Yeah.
because then I'm on my way out a bit.
Yeah.
Weird how you think, innit?
It's crazy because even when you go to pray salah in the masjid, and you find a lot of buzurg, a lot of elderly people in the masjid, they're spending a lot of time there in the masjid. How many people from the youth do you actually really see at the masjid, putting the same time in, same energy in as they do? And it's like you have your chapters in your life where you want to divide it up and only give a certain part of your life to a certain chapter. And it's like you put that religion part of it right at the end, and you're thinking, all right, so when I get to a certain stage, then I'll open that chapter and I'll transition and go into that period, and I'll start, making amends and preparing for, the next life and everything
Such
else.
bad logic, innit?
It's crazy.
It's like you know how long you're gonna
It's
live.
crazy. I remember I went with one of my mum's brothers, to a masjid for a fundraiser. He wanted to raise some money for a mosque he was building in Lancashire. I was just sat in the masjid, and he went to speak to the imam. And there was an elderly man there, and he come over to me and he goes, "Oh, you people, all you do is come here and ask for money. You don't know what you're doing. Like, we don't know what you do with your money, blah, blah, blah." And I was just like slightly taken aback, and I felt like I didn't like what he said. And I was just like, I didn't feel nice to me, like the way he came across. And I was just like, my mum would come back over, and I was like, this buzurg elderly person, like, this is what he said to me. And he goes, look, this person that you've now encountered right now, he goes, look at his age. Look how old he is. He goes, look at how old you are, how old I am. If you were to ask this person, what was he doing in his youth at the point that you're at now, where do you think he would have been? He wouldn't have been in the masjid. He wouldn't have been where we are today. So he goes, don't feel too bad about what he said. He's obviously in that place now for his reasons. He doesn't understand your reasons. So
take it on the chin, keep it moving.
Keep it moving. Yeah. And
it's good advice generally.
It always sticks with me though, that, I remember whenever I have a conversation I can relate to it, I always mention it, and I'm like, that was one experience where I felt inside me, I had that burning desire to like be like, but why are you saying this? Like, I don't like what you're saying. But it was okay. Take it on the chin, because, I get what the objective really is. And there's no time limit. When we realize there's no time limit, there's no, set time for when you need to be doing that, things start falling into place for you.
So talk to me about what happened then. So because I don't know anything about the crash. All I know is that I know like kind of what happened and where you ended up, but I have no idea of the details. I don't know what happened.
So this was Feb 2012. I remember waking up. I played football the night before. It was a Monday night. I remember we used to play in like a dome leisure centre thing. It used to be covered. We used to play night football. I woke up a bit late the next day.
We're in Feb now. So how many? What do you remember the day?
I think it was a Tuesday.
Sorry, okay. So that's towards the end of Feb.
Yeah. I woke up, and up until this point, I hadn't been praying.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. So I woke up, I had a shower, and something said to me, "Is Zor, read Zor." So I read my namaz, my salah, and obviously being kids, driving, my brother's at school, like, he had a scholarship, and my mum's like, can you pick him up from, his school? And I said, that's cool, because that's what you do, you do them little errands at home. So I read my namaz just normally. I didn't think anything of it. I thought, let me try and get back into my religion. Let me try and pray, like, even if it's once a day, at least take a step.
Yeah, of course.
So that was my step. That was that first. I remember after a while, that was the first time that I'd read namaz. We read Jummah and stuff, but, the Jummah was like, you almost feel like Jummah makes up for the whole week kind of thing, And I went and picked my brother up, and I came back, and my mum needed to go to hospital because she had an appointment. So my dad's rung me on the way back after picking my brother up and said, look, can you take your mum to the hospital because she's got an appointment? I said, that's fine, no problem. So I came home, picked my mum up. And my brother's like, I need to go into town because I've given my phone for repair, so I need to grab my phone. So I said, that's fine. So I dropped my mum off, took my brother into town, I parked up, I waited for him. Normally it's like you just want to get as close as possible to where you're going so that you don't have to walk so far.
Of course.
But because there was a restriction within the town centre, you can't go into town centre during certain times, which is like 11 to 3 or like 7 to 11 kind of thing. So I waited outside that zone, and he went and got his phone. Normally I would have just like tried to like just somehow, you know, just go down that road, and if I get a ticket or whatever, you know, we'll deal with it afterwards. But on that day I was like, no, I'm just gonna wait here, like let him grab his phone. Grabbed his phone, we started driving back, and at this point my mum's still at the hospital. So I'm driving back towards the hospital, but it's the same direction that I'd go home as well. We're driving down the road, and quite frankly, because I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie in that sense, and I'm driving a certain way, I'm trying to just skip traffic, because it's like 4 o'clock, you know, traffic's starting to build up, people are leaving work, they're going home, can't really be bothered to sit around. So I'm driving down the road, I'm just doing a couple of zigzags, I'm in and out, you know, I'm trying to get down towards the area where my mum's at. When I got to the bit where I should have turned right and gone towards the hospital, because that's where I should have been going, I decided to carry on going straight. Why I decided to go carry on straight, I have no explanation for. So there was clearly a breakdown in thinking, there was a breakdown in the process in my head of what am I doing, where am I going. I'm not thinking I should be turning right here, okay, turn right, let's just keep on going straight. So go further down the road, there's build up of traffic, so I skip 2 lanes of traffic and I go into the bus lane. As I'm driving down the bus lane, I remember it was the same place that I'd got stopped back in 2005, so I slowed down because I thought there might be a police car. I didn't slow down as much, I continued on my journey, and I come to a set of traffic lights that at that point I didn't realise were out of order, so they weren't working. And as I approached the traffic lights, because I was in the far left lane, and then to the right of me were 2 lanes, there was a middle lane and the lane on the right. I'm approaching the traffic lights, and suddenly from in front of the cars, a figure appears that's just right there by my car. And I'm not going to put a number on how fast I was going, but it wasn't more than 40. You know, I was doing between 30 and 40 miles an hour. But it was too late. I was already there on that line, and he was already there. So I tried to swerve my car, but there was half a second in it, and unfortunately we collided. You know, hit my car. At that point, I just remember having like a flash in my head, and it was like my whole life had just flashed in front of me at that moment. And my brother was on his phone. He didn't even realise, because he was too busy playing with his phone. He's got his phone back, and I just remember saying like, "Oh crap!" And then he looked up, but obviously by then it already occurred. Quickly stopped my car, jumped out. I'm just like, what do I do? I've no idea what I'm meant to do in this situation, because I've just hit someone. I'm in the lane that I shouldn't have been in. That's probably slightly over the speed limit.
And so was he crossing the traffic lights that were not working?
Yeah.
That's okay, fine.
Yeah. But the highway code states that if you approach a set of traffic lights that are out of order, then as the driver, you proceed with extreme caution. So the onus is on the driver. The onus is on the person that's driving a motor vehicle to proceed with extreme caution, which means that their responsibility has increased further than it would be in a normal situation. But I had no recollection, no knowledge. I didn't even look at the traffic lights and see that they were working or not working. In my head, they're green. Again, for some reason, I'm not thinking, you know. I'm thinking, what's going on? What's happening? What do I do? You know, there's this person lying on the floor. People have got out their cars. People are screaming at me. People are saying, what are you doing? What have you done? You were speeding. You're this, you're that. And in your head, you're trying to think to yourself, how do I get out of this situation? Because that's the natural thing to do. You don't want to make it like it's coming across in that way. But in your head, you're thinking to yourself, how do I protect myself right now and get myself out of this situation? But the situation was such that it was in front of the whole world. There's nowhere to hide. You're not going to be able to just mysteriously hide behind the wall. There's nothing there. You're exposed. It's right there in front of you. So I remember paramedics turning up, the police had turned up, and they're like, let's just get away from the scene. We're going to sit in the car for a bit. We sit in the car for a bit. Paramedics do their job. They take this person away for treatment to the hospital. And they're like, look, we're gonna go to the police station. So that's fine, let's go to the police station. You know, just before then, my mum's turned up, my brother's turned up, because somehow they've found out that this has happened. Like, it's like within half a minute, the whole of town knew that this had occurred. And I'm just like, everyone just go home right now. Like, you know, it's gonna be all right. Got to the police station. I'm now in a holding cell. You know, you've got nothing there. No voice, no one to talk to, no one to ask for help. And all you're saying to yourself is, Ya Allah, protect me, help me. You know, like, you're looking up and you're pleading, you're begging. You know, you just want that help right now, that you can just get yourself out of that situation. Spoke to duty solicitor. He's like, I'm coming down. We'll sort it out. So now they're ready for an interview. So before we got to the interview, they arrested me for dangerous driving. Before we take you into the interview room, we just need to take you into the side room. So took me into a side room and goes, we're sorry to tell you that the person who you collided with has passed away, unfortunately. So we're now further arresting you and causing death by dangerous driving.
How did you feel at that point?
I just remember I was standing against the wall, and I just slumped to the floor. I just sort of curled up with my head in my hands, and I'm just like, this can't be happening. Like, right now, this can't be happening. Like, why? Please, you know, I'm saying the things where you just want something or someone to listen to you or hear you, you know. Like, why? Please, like, help me. Like, what's going on? And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. So we're going to the interview, have an interview with the officers. I give them my account of what's happened. And like I said from before, you know, you're always going to try and put yourself in a situation where, regardless of what has happened to anyone else, you want to try and safeguard yourself. I think it's a very natural thing. And I'm obviously giving them my account. They've taken my account on board. They've managed to get CCTV of the whole thing. It's live footage. It's in real play. So, you know, I can't even say anything to that. You know, it's there in front of them. Interview's concluded. I get bailed. You know, they drop me home. I get outside my house, and you know, it's like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and my whole family's just there.
Did your family know?
Yeah, they were all aware of it. And
how did they find out?
I mean, you know, we live in societies where, you know, Asians spread like news like wildfire. You know.
How did they find out that the guy had passed away? Just because he just got around, basically.
Yeah, because my dad's a very realist kind of guy. He's very hands-on. He's a very, like I said, that I'm a people pleaser. I almost slightly inherit that from him. So he'd gone out in the meantime to see what he could find out information-wise, because, you know, he just wanted to know what was going on. And obviously he came to understand that was the situation. Got home, and my parents and my brothers are like, you okay? Don't worry, it's going to be alright. Everything's going to be okay. You know, we'll work things out. We'll sort it out. Don't worry. You know, we'll work out what we need to do. So I'm beating myself up now, thinking, what have I done? You know, this is bad, you know. Trying to, like, the whole thing's replaying in my head constantly. Like, I'm just like, the whole journey, the sequence of events, and I'm just thinking, what's happened? Like, how has this happened? How have I allowed this to happen? You know, the one thing that I enjoyed the most was driving. The one thing I enjoyed most was just being a bit cool. And that has led me to my downfall. That has led me to the stage that I'm at right now in my life. And I'm just completely perplexed. And I'm just like trying to channel all of that into how I need to move forward as a person from that point onwards.
How much thought did you give to the person who passed away and like their family and stuff? Like, did you have like just an overwhelming feeling of guilt?
I was just like for me, that's the last thing I would ever expected myself to do, in the sense that my lifestyle, the way I am, the way I've lived, the way I've grown up, like, I've never looked at it in the sense that I would ever cause harm to that extent. So, excuse me, I was just like completely broken. Like, I was just like putting myself in their shoes and thinking, what are they going through right now? I'm trying to visualize what's happening in their life. Because for them, they would have been destroyed.
Did you ever like find out more information about who that person was and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, because it became public knowledge very quickly that it was shared in the papers and news was involved.
And the trial and stuff.
Trial and like all that. So when they compile all of that information, you get a lot of that information. And it's just difficult because you're yourself as a person in that situation, and you've put them in that situation. They have to come to terms with what's happened, and you've got to come to terms with what's happened. But on their end, their punishment is in the sense that they've now got to understand how they move on in their lives and accept what's gone on. And for me, it's about, what are my consequences from what's occurred here? And I remember just like, feeling sorry for myself, like inside thinking, why has this happened? Why me? What am I going to do? And, people start giving you advice. People start saying stuff like, go to the doctors and get counseling, and it's going to help you with your case. And, you want to build a case for yourself where you can almost diminish your responsibility a little bit and try and like minimize, your sort of punishment for what you've done, and sort of like try and, rather than taking responsibility and ownership for what's happened, sort of swerve it in a way like, oh, the traffic lights weren't working. Why weren't the traffic lights working? Like, what's happened? Like, was everything like above board on the day with like the environment, the roads, everything? So you're trying to find reasons and excuses for you to like divulge that responsibility and put that on something else. And I just remember like there was loads of information flying around, and someone's like, get counselling, it'll be good for you. And I remember I went to this counselling session twice. Once was just as a sort of icebreaker, and the guy's like, oh, you've got PTSD. He's going to charge me £80 an hour or something. And he's like, we're going to do this thing of something I desensitization or something. And we're going to basically desensitize the information in your head to minimize how you feel about it. And I remember I did one session, and I was just like, but I don't know why I'm doing this right now. Like, what's the objective? Am I trying to overcome how I feel? Am I trying to prepare a case for what's going to happen? Or what is the objective? And then at the same time, I go to the GP, and the GP's like, I'm struggling to sleep. And he's like, I'm going to prescribe you some sleeping pills. Here's your prescription. Like, they're just going to prescribe you something. Here you go. I take that prescription home, and, the prescription's just there. Like, I'm not...
You never did it. You never used it.
And I remember I was sleeping all day, and I was waking up at night, staying awake for the whole night, occupying myself. I've cut myself off from the world. I'm trying to...
How long was this period between the accident
I was on
and the
bail
trial?
for 13 months.
Wow.
So from 2012 to 2013, I was at that point where I wasn't anywhere in my life. I didn't know what was going on with it.
What were you doing, just waiting for a court date?
So the case, because of how serious it was, the prosecution wanted everything down to the T. You know, they wanted to dot the I's and cross the T's in any aspect of that case that they could. So they fully put work in to ensure that. But also sometimes with like courts, Crown Court, trial dates, you go to the magistrates. So obviously I was on bail, then I got rebailed, then I got charged, then I got given a court date, magistrates, then it's Crown Court, then it's like preliminaries, and then it's like pleas, and then they set a date for the trial. So it's blocks of dates that you get, and you have to attend, and you have to work from one date to the other. And very quickly I knew that, you know, it's something that I have to deal with. It's just not going to go away. You know, like if you're in other countries, i.e. in Pakistan, you know, you can almost just pay up and get away with it. You know, whereas in our country here in the UK, you know, if you've done something wrong, you have to pay for that crime, for that deed, by going through the courts, and they then decide what they're going to do with your life.
Did you in your head know? Did you in your head during those 30 months think I'm gonna end up in prison? Or you don't know?
I knew prison was probably something that would happen, but it was like, let me take each day as it comes. And I remember I was going through that phase where I'm hiding and I'm feeling sorry for myself, and like I put it out there to the extent that I'd imagined myself in the same situation of jumping in front of a car or getting hit by a car. You know, it was like my thinking had gone so low that I wasn't thinking clearly. And then one day I was just...
Oh, as in you felt suicidal?
I mean, I don't know whether you would call it suicidal, whether you would just call it like an imagination of, you know, because of your guilt, you're imagining that scenario and you're putting yourself in that situation.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Wow.
And I remember like, I was like down. I was down, you know, I was down. And then one day I thought to myself, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Like, why are you like this? And I remember that point, I was in prostration. I was in sajda when that clicked in my head. And it was like a flick of the switch, but completely just changed within an instance. You know, I went from being that guy that was down, hurt, scared, you know, felt sorry for himself, wanted a bit of attention, wanted people to be like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. You needed that comfort from people, try and make you feel better. To almost a sudden just thinking to myself, you know what? If there's anything where anyone or any existence right now that can get me through what I am, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in an instance, I just put my trust in that thing there, in that. And I was like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going to leave this to you. If you've got me to this situation now, there's a reason behind it. I started to understand qadr. I started to understand sequence of events, why they've occurred. And I think as I progress and talk further, qadr was something that played such a massive part in my life that as soon as I got my head around the whole qadr aspect of things, it just started simplifying things and making it easier for me. And the flick of the switch was, you know, I whatever like silly thoughts I was having, they were gone. Like in an instance, I remember I was applying for jobs. I wanted to be active. I wanted to try and live my life how I could. I applied for like jobs and I got knocked back because of like security and stuff. And I thought, okay, well, it is what it is at the end of the day, you know. I'm trying. I haven't given up. Like, I'll keep going. And we got to the trial date and I had to have a pre-sentencing report after the trial. But whilst I had my trial, I'd already pleaded guilty to a lesser offence of causing death by careless driving. But the prosecution wanted me on death by dangerous driving, which is a more serious offence and carries a higher sentence. Went to trial. I got found guilty.
Of death by dangerous driving?
Death by dangerous driving.
Is the prosecution prosecuting on behalf of the public?
Yeah.
Or okay, fine.
They're prosecuting me because they've got a big enough case anyway. It's all in front of them, you know, the witness statements and... Yeah, so the prosecution had a big enough case. Like, they knew that they they were going to get a victory with this. My defense they were probably in it for the paycheck, in the sense that the evidence was in front of them as well, but they just wanted to test the water. But it was an ordeal for everyone. Everyone that had to go through that was, someone that probably didn't come out the same because of the depth of the investigation and how raw it was for everyone involved for what had occurred. And I just remember after thinking to myself, like, that platform that I had at that point by going to trial just allowed me to show the judge that, okay, cool, you found me guilty, you've bailed me for another month now. I've surrendered my passport, so I've got a whole month that I know I'm going to prison. It's inevitable.
How much of a sentence did you get?
Got 5.5 years.
So you pled guilty to death by careless driving, but for death by dangerous driving, you had to have a case.
Yeah, so I went to
if
trial.
you had if they accepted the death by careless driving, would you have had a case? Like, have had to have a trial?
No, then it probably would have just been sentencing. I would have got a lesser sentence. But I think the seriousness of the offence, quite rightly, I think it was a case of death by dangerous driving, because obviously my manner of driving was less of it being careless and more of it being dangerous because of in the manner I drove, the reasons for why I drove in that manner, my thought process, all the rest of it. I remember that whole period of bail for 1 month, I had to go for like pre-sentencing report. And even when you go for pre-sentencing report, you have to, it's like anything, when you go for a job interview, you have to say the right things, and it's like, everyone's like, okay, say this, do this, don't do this. And I remember just going there and she's like, do you accept what's happened? Do you take responsibility for it? And I said, I do. I said, at the end of the day, it's something that I've done, I accept it. I'm not here to tell you or make up excuses or say it's not my fault and the judge has got it wrong and everything else. I've done the deed, I accept the court's decision, I'm just going to go with whatever they say. So she writes up her report and gives it to the judge. When I got found guilty, the judge has slated me. He's publicly given me a verbal beating in front of the whole courtroom. When I turned up for sentencing, I've done a bit of homework, I've written him a letter, I've got some references from family and friends and from the community. I just wanted him to understand that I can understand that the deed that I've done, I know that I've gone so wrong in life, but also at the same time, like, me as a person, as a character, it's not going to define the action that I've done. The action was almost out of character, in the sense that, I would never want to be in a position where I've caused so much harm to someone. But obviously my thought process, breakdown in like thinking, led me to, end up in that situation. Went to court. I remember the night before going for sentencing, I'm just sat there at home and I'm crying. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to go to prison. I remember my dad just putting his arm around me and saying, look, son, you're still going to come back. Just look at it like that. You're still coming back. Like, just think about that family. They're never going to get that person back. You're still coming back, And I was just like, you're right. I packed my bag.
How long did you think that you would go in for before you got sentenced?
I had no idea, because the maximum sentence that you could have got was 14 years on death by dangerous driving. And the less of less was about 3 years or 4 years custodial. So I had no idea. And it was a matter of seriousness on how they felt and what level it fell, because it was a level 1, level 2, level 3. It being between 3 and 5 years, 5 and 8 years, 8 and 14 years. And they sort of decided that 5.5 was appropriate. Excuse me. So
did you serve your whole sentence?
Yeah, so I got sentenced 5.5 years, 2 years, 9 months. Half of it is what you do in custody. Half of it is what you do on release out in the community, but you're still on license. So 2 years, 9 months, I'm just that guy that was just living life, working, family, friends, enjoying themselves, You know, not really up to much in the sense that going out of my way to, you know, do a certain action that would cause me to end up in prison. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm there. I'm in an environment I never imagined myself I would be in. And I just remember like going to prison, and I got off the bus, and the inspector that was prison officer that was at reception was like asking questions, taking details, and he was like, "Do you smoke?" And I'm like, "Don't smoke." And he's like, "Well, we'll soon have you smoking then." And it was like there was a certain mindset, you know, everyone in prison smokes. Everyone uses that as a way of getting through their sentences, tobacco, whatever else it might be. I was wearing this blue suit, and he's like, "It's a very nice suit, but you're not going to need it anymore, so just take it off, you know. Take your clothes off. You've lost your dignity straight away. You know, you feel like you've just had your respect taken straight away from you. You've got no family, no friends, no status, no respect, no cars, no wealth. There's nothing to hide behind. None of that is going to help you at that point in your life. So you're completely naked as a person."
So, talk to me about life in prison. Where do you know? Okay, I don't know what information you're kind of happy to give or not give. So, if you're not happy to give something, just let me know.
Yeah.
But where were you at?
So I did a year in Bullingdon.
Okay.
HMP Bullingdon's like a local
Okay.
catchment prison. So you have like catchment prisons where you get sent if it's within the catchment area. So Bullingdon's based in like Bicester. So from Reading Crown Court, a lot of people, or Reading magistrates as well, Reading, Slough, so like High Wycombe, Oxford, these sort of areas, people will be sent to that prison there. And then from there, they're then either dispersed into different prisons, or they'll just stay there for a certain amount of time. So I think for me, once I got sentenced, it was almost like closure, because I now knew that I can close one chapter in my life and start another one and move on. So I could concentrate on the fact that I've accepted my punishment, I've accepted what's been given to me from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also from the courts at the same time. So just set about my sort of like routine, adjusting in prison, figuring out what it was that I was going to do, how I was going to go through this journey. Because when you're in prison, you can go about it in many different ways. You can be completely isolated in the sense that you want nothing to do with anyone in prison. You can just find yourself in the block where, you know, you're constantly getting yourself put there because you want to be away from everything. You can go down the route of just sleeping through your sentence. You wake up, have a meal, go sleep, because people do that. You know, they'll just sleep their way through the sentence. Or you can get on with it, you know, be active, get out there, use the time that you have, you know, be involved in whatever sort of like opportunities there are in prison. Because as an institution, you're almost learning a different sort of life when you're in there. And I think once you get yourself in a routine, like it's systematic. It becomes repetitive. You just do things again and again, over and over again. You're just doing them. I remember like the first sort of week I was in an induction wing. I remember waking up the first day and coming out of the cells, and just people flying around. There's people running this way, there's people running that way, there's people going upstairs, there's people going to the showers, there's people going to the medicine hatch, there's people lining up for medication. I'm just like, why is there so many people lining up for medication? You know, things like mental health, drug addiction, all of that I'm oblivious to. Like, I have no idea, you know.
Were you one of the... So you mentioned the three kind of types of ways you could get through your sentence. Which one were you?
So for me, I used my time as effectively and as positively as I could. Like, I didn't waste a minute whilst I was in there. I didn't like just sit around and like think, oh, I'm in prison, what should I do? You know, I thought to myself, well, if Allah's put me here for a reason, then let's get on with it. You know, let's see what we can get out of this experience, because that's what it was. It was an experience, you know. It was like a degree. Like, I didn't go to university. Like, I felt like I went in as a boy, I came out as a man. Like, I graduated, you know. I went there, I took my lessons, I built myself up as a person, and I came back. And it was just a matter of like trying to use your time and energy. You know, you're going to the gym, you're eating at a certain time, you're reading books, you're reading your namaz. You know, you build your life in a certain way. You know, you're systematic.
Did you get in much trouble?
No, none.
And you must have been sharing a cell.
So initially, when you like land in prison, most of the times you find yourself in an induction wing, and then after that you get moved to main sort of like areas within the prison. I remember they took me to the main area, and it was a very small single cell with a double bunk bed. I remember walking in, and there was a guy sat there, and he was just sat there staring at the TV like that. And it was a big build, older guy. And he just looked at me and just looked away, and I could just tell from his look that he wasn't happy that, you know, they'd brought another person to put into his cell with him.
Yeah.
I just gone in, I'm carrying this big plastic bag with my belongings, and it's like, okay, well, the top bunk bed's mine, so, you know, I'm just like putting my stuff away, and, you know, we just start having a little chat, breaking the ice, and he's like, where you from? And I'm like, from Reading. He's like, from Reading as well, and it's like, what do you do, where you from? And I'm like, from this area. And he's like, oh, do you know this person? And I'm like, yeah, he's my neighbour. And it's like, all of a sudden I know this person. You know, we've broken the barriers completely. And then it's like, okay, I feel a bit better right now because I'm not scared now. I don't know, anything could have happened in that cell, but, you know, I've now realised that, you know, some of them fears that I had, I can overcome them because I don't need to worry. And from then onwards, it was just about settling in, you know, sussing out what you should and shouldn't do, what is overstepping the mark and what isn't, and just like going with the flow and making sure that you're like doing something, you know.
How did you keep yourself out of trouble? Keep yourself to yourself.
I was selective in who I spoke to, who I mingled with, because you're in an environment where people are from all walks of life. You're coming across every type of character in that prison, you know, from people that belong there to people that don't belong there to people that are in for the pettiest things to people that are in for the most serious of crimes. So, you know, you don't really know what could happen next. No one's got a reason to hold back. Even the most frailest of persons has nothing to lose. So if they're going to come at you with something, they're not going to care because they're in an environment where everyone has to protect themselves. So I was just very diplomatic in how I handled myself, in the sense that I'm in prison. Allah's put me in prison. I need to go home. But it's 2 years, 9 months. That's a long time. Let's use that time. I remember I was enrolled in a couple of education programs. I'm going to the gym. I went in at a very sort of like mediocre 63 kilos.
Okay.
I didn't weigh anything, you know. I remember the nurse rolling up my arm for my blood pressure, and she looked at me and laughed and goes, this must be the skinniest arm I've ever checked.
Oh.
And in my head I'm thinking, yeah, it's just embarrassing, you know, like I'm so skinny, you know. And I just like set about food and like, you know, trying to gain weight and gym. And then Ramadan was approaching, and it's weird because I never asked for it, but for some reason my name was given to work in the kitchens, and you have to have security clearance to do that. And Allahu Alam, I don't know how it happened. I never gave my name, but my name was put forward for security clearance to work in the kitchens. It came back that I've been cleared to work in the kitchen, so I went and started working in the kitchens for Ramadan, which was basically preparing meals for your fellow prisoners, because everyone's going to keep, you know, their fast, but they need something to break their fast with and something to keep their fast with as well. So we'd prepare them meals. And
so you only prepared the meals for the Muslims who are doing Ramadan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a specific task, because obviously there's about 120, 130 prisoners, and every day they need to be fed. So you're going into
120 Muslim prisoners?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going into prison, and you're going into the kitchens and need to prepare these meals and need to be ready by a certain time. And then they need to be packed in these flasks and then basically ready for them to be sent to the different wings in the prison. So I'm doing that. And by doing that, I'm now in this position where it's like credit history. Like, your credit history is good. So they have a Samaritans program in prison called Listener Scheme, where if an inmate is in distress, or they're feeling suicidal, or they want to self-harm, or they just got some thoughts in their head and they need someone to speak to, a peer-to-peer service is called a listener scheme, where they call out a listener, the person goes, sits down with them, and then they're able to talk about things that they're feeling. You don't guide them, you don't give them any guidance, you don't tell them what they should or shouldn't do. You're just there as a person for them to be able to offload on, for them to be able to channel whatever it is they're feeling. So by working in the prison kitchen, I was able to then enroll in this scheme and become a listener. So I would find myself in situations where I'm listening to people, and then at that point, all of a sudden, mental health is in my face. Before that, I had no idea. Like, I didn't know. You know, we come from this taboo community that, you know, brushes that under the carpet, and it's nothing, or it's jinn, or we don't really look into the nitty gritty of what actually is really happening psychologically to a person. So all of a sudden, I'm speaking to people, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, you know, these are kind of people I've never met before. They're opening my eyes to how their family lives have been, their backgrounds, and all of a sudden I'm grateful for what I've got. I'm grateful for the upbringing. I'm grateful for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me in family, in friends, you know, in support, in work, in rizq, in everything, in health. And I'm using that to my advantage. I'm using that to better me as a person, but also I'm using what I have as an experience to try and help these people that I'm speaking to, and let them get themselves through their prison sentences, because people feel really vulnerable, people feel scared, people feel like there's no help, and so they're crying, you know, they're calling, they've got voices in their heads, but they just need someone that they can speak to in confidence, not someone that's going to go and tell another person, because all of our interactions used to be confidential. So I would never share what I've spoken about with a prisoner that needs my time with anyone else in the prison, unless it was fellow peer listeners, because we would discuss it amongst ourselves, or offload to the Samaritans who would come in once a month, and we'd have meetings with them. So from that, I carried on, and I had like a full-time job in the kitchens once Ramadan was over. But as I'm progressing through my sentence, I'm like reading books, because that's what you want to do. You want to get knowledge, you want to spend time correcting yourself, getting as much information from your religion and bettering yourself. And I remember just instances where I could feel like there was a change in me. I could feel like I was connected when I'm making dua. I'm doing it so powerfully that I can feel like I don't see no reason why it's not going to get accepted. I don't see no reason why what I'm asking for right now is not going to happen. I just remember one day before Jummah, I did wudu, and I'm saying to my mate, like, I've just done wudu right now. I feel really light. I feel good. And I'm like I feel like, you know, I feel good about myself. I feel light. And I remember we go to the khutbah, and because in prison you have Jummah sessions as well as like full-time imams and everything else. And your imam's there, and he's talking, and he's doing his khutbah, and he's delivering his speech, and he starts talking about Huzur Pak Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and an instance where he said that for any person that does wudu in the right way, that their minor sins are washed away. And in my head it almost clicks all of a sudden, and I'm like, this is why I'm feeling light right now. This is why I feel good, because I'm constantly in that practice of doing wudu. So I'm cleansing myself, and I feel light. And it's just like little snippets of information that's being put in front of your eyes, and they're opening your eyes, and you're processing the information, and you're understanding, because you're developing your logical thought processes, and your thinking, and your brain, you know, you're starting to understand, and you're taking time to read into situations. You know, you stop being impulsive, because now you have to apply logic to everything. You have to apply a thought process into everything that you're doing. So you start looking at these things, and you start understanding, okay, so this is why this is happening. This is why I feel like this in a certain way. So as I was progressing through my sentence, I was getting sort of these lessons, and I was learning them, and they were making me feel good about myself. And I knew that I was strong within me, because I wasn't weak. I didn't feel like I was scared. I didn't feel like I couldn't trust the process, because I'd completely put my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I just knew that because He's got to me to this place, there's a mission, there's an aim for me to be here today, because I didn't live my life in that way where I should end up there, but I still ended up there. I had a good upbringing. My parents have been good. I have a good family. I've always been part of a working culture. But then to still end up in that environment, which wasn't my natural habitat, meant that I had to go through that process. And I was working in the kitchens. And in the kitchens, they have these trolleys, and you stack trays of food onto it, and you put it into these big conventional ovens. And I remember one day I was working in the kitchen, and I put the trolley into the oven, and after about 2 hours, I'm taking it out. But someone else has stacked that trolley, not me. And there's a note on the trolley engraved saying that do not stack above this line. So someone's put a tray higher up than head level. So I've taken the trolley out, and I need to take the tray off so I can put it into the chiller. As I'm taking it off from the top, because it's got food in it and it's heavy, it tipped. As it's tipped, it's fallen on my arm. So I've burnt my arm in that instance. So the supervisor comes running out, grabs me, takes me over to the sink, fills it up with cold water, and just says, "Stay here, don't move." And I can see my arm, my skin starting to peel away a little bit. And I'm just like in pain, and I'm just like, wow, how has that just happened? And from there, they're like, go to healthcare. And they're just like really shook. They're like, "Oh, you're going to be okay. We're going to sort this out. Go back to your cell and get your healthcare, and, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay." And I knew what they were thinking in their head. They're thinking, "We've messed up. There's a claim. Someone stacked the tray so high up. He's hurt himself."
Yeah.
But I was so beyond that. I went to healthcare. They patched me up. For a couple of weeks, like my skin wasn't that nice on my forearm. I remember I had a family visit from my family, and I wore a long shirt so that they couldn't see that I'd burnt my arm.
Would you think that they would think that something happened to you?
Not so much. I think it would have been the distress and the grief that they would have got, and how upset it would have made them to know that I've hurt myself and there's nothing they can do for me. Because as your family, they're your protectors. They're the people that when something goes wrong, they build a wall around you of comfort, and they make you feel better. So I didn't let on that something was wrong. But I remember like that was one thing, and my sentence, where people would say to me like, "I'll put a claim in. Why don't you put an appeal in for your sentence?" And I was like, look, I've come to prison because someone's lost their life. I'm still going to go home at the end of the day. That's just a small burn on my arm. Where's the comparison? A minor burn on my arm and loss of life. Like you can't put both of them things on the same level field. It's like, look beyond it. I don't really care if I've burnt my arm. I'm not going to go and kick up a fuss in the kitchen and be like, this has happened and you guys need to compensate me. What about the people that have lost their family member? Who's going to compensate them?
So let's skip forward the story a bit in that you serve your sentence and then you come out of prison. Now, when you come out of prison, what's life like? First of all, even now you're doing this episode of podcast. Yeah. Are there going to be some people who, when this episode is released, are going to be surprised, shocked because they know you and they don't know your story?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's people that obviously I now know within the last year that would have no idea.
Okay. And how are you mentally able to move on from that? So that you can move on with your life? Do you take contentment from the fact that Allah is your protector and He is at-Tawwab and ar-Razaq and is that kind of how your mentality went for after you left prison?
100%. Like, it was so smooth, my prison sentence, in the sense that my whole trust was in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I just knew that I'm on the journey. It's a mission. I've got to complete it. Can't come home without it being incomplete. And even upon release, I was so geared up, I was so prepared for release that, you know, all that time that I'd had, like preparing myself and doing my homework and, you know, getting ready, I had all that energy built up inside me. I just wanted to come back and just prove to myself that, one, what had happened in my life was for the better of me as a person, but also it was a lesson for everyone, not just for me, for everyone involved, for everyone that could take anything from that experience of mine. It was there for them as well.
What do you say to people who, because we mentioned at the beginning of the episode that there's like this stereotype with like Asian boys that they drive around and we drive around and we're careless with our driving, and stereotypes sometimes exist for a reason, and oftentimes they don't exist for a reason. Oftentimes they exist because there's prejudiced people in the world. But we know that when it comes to Eid, when it comes to certain celebrations, there's a lot. And it probably exists in all cultures, but because we're from our own culture, we only know of our own culture. And you know that there's this thing where you pass your driving test, you get in your car, and you start driving carelessly and recklessly, and you never think that you're going to be the person who is going to be on the position that you were in. But I'm sure you never thought that as well. So what would your message be to those guys now, the 17-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, the 25-year-olds who are driving around like that?
What I'd say is, like, first and foremost, after I came out of prison, I was still on a ban. So I had another 2 years and 3 months on a ban, 6 months on a ban. So I wasn't driving. I had to get about my life, public transport, taxis, asking for lifts, things that you don't want to do because you're so reliant, your life is so built around having your own car and your independence. You have to rely on that. And also, I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and be like, you know, I'm a reformed person, I've passed my test. We're still human, you know. Allah's made us in a way where we can do good and bad at any point in our life, but we strive to do as much good as we can, but it's harder. It's easier not to do good. It's harder to do good. So even now that I've passed my driving, I can find myself in instances where I need to question myself and be like, do I really need to go? Do I need to do this? Do I need to go this far? Because I know of my experience. I know what's happened with me.
You must find that you're a lot more careful now.
I'm selective in scenarios and situations. And when I'm encountering a situation, I'm thinking all the way back. Because it was thought process, but also lack of understanding for my environment and for things around me. It was just being slightly self-centered in the sense that you're only concentrating on you and what you're doing, and you've forgotten where you're at, who's around you, the risk that you're posing to other people. But like, my message would be, we only live once.
In this dunya.
In this dunya. In this dunya. And we have so much opportunity and potential. Allah's made us the best of mankind, the best of creation. You know, He's given us so much. He's given us these limbs. He's given us this mindset, the ability to think, to act, to do so much. That we need to sort of like sometimes take a step back and think, these things of like getting caught up in like the fascination of cars and everything else, what is it really? Or where does it really take you in your life? When you get older, you marry, you have children. For a lot of people, that stuff starts to fade anyway, naturally, because you start to realize your responsibilities, you start to realize what actually is of importance. But if from the beginning you could actually understand that a car is just a car, you don't need to judge someone by what they drive. You know, after I passed my driving test, I was just driving a banged up Wire Red Yaris, you know. And for me, I was proud that I had a car and I was driving it and I was like, this is my car, I feel good about it. But I didn't really care how it would look to anyone else. And I still remember I pulled up next to some guy in Reading. He was a taxi driver. And he goes to me, why are you driving that car for? I just looked at him and I was like, you would never understand. You know, for me, being able to beat myself up, excuse me, to the extent that I've broke it down to me that it's just a car. I could drive any car today and not have to worry about how I'd look, because that car doesn't define me as a person, as a character. It doesn't define my personality. You know, cars are created for transport. They're created to enjoy. So if you want to enjoy something, then learn to enjoy it, but don't use it in a fashion where, one, it's dictating your life, but two, it can cause you to lose track of life or cause your life to become something that you would never want it to become. So it's a machine. It's a dangerous machine. You know, I never realized that before, but I realized when it was too late. And I'm grateful that Allah took me on that journey, and He made me realize so much about life and about myself, but also about things that He's given us in life and its purpose. And now I understand, even though I'm sat here saying all of this, you know, I probably still will find myself in a situation where, you know, I sort of maybe have lapse of concentration, but I put that down to the fact that I'm human. I know that I'm never going to be 100%.
Yeah, it's important not to beat yourself up,
and that's
to the
what I
point where
think
you
we
go into
forget in
depression.
today's day and age, that we're so hell-bent on ensuring that we can give the best version of us, that we get so engrossed in it that it takes over us as a person. And we're like, everything that anyone does is like, but why did he do that? He's like this. But it's like, he's human. His nature, his design, the way he's been designed so that he can be right and be wrong. So allow that person, but if you can help them, educate them. If you can't help them, then allow them to educate themselves so that they can understand right and wrong. But we're like savage mode, you know, we just want to go for the kill. We don't allow people to like be like, okay, if that is a fault or something's happened, let's see how it develops. Let them correct themselves.
So after you leave prison, you come home, and at that time, had your mum been ill while you were in prison, or did she
No.
get ill after?
So after prison, went back to work, and that was 2016, and then 2016, 2017. I think it was late. Was it 2018? 2017 it was, yeah. She fell ill. She started getting these pains in her body. I couldn't really work out what was going on. My mum was that person that she did everything for us, for her children, you know, for her partner, for her family. She was like that person that would never give up. She'll go sleep at the end, she'll wake up the earliest, she'll do all the errands, like, you know, she'll help with business, she'll help with family, with work, anything that it was, she will do. She'll cook, everything, you know, it was above board. It's like a very rare breed of person that you'd come across in your life, that they leave an impact on every single person that comes across them. And for us, like, my mum's investment was her boys. Like, she invested her life fully in us as individuals. Obviously, she wanted us to have the best education, hence why they took us abroad. They wanted us to learn over there, take what we could. But coming back to the UK, everyone's nature is different, you know, their setup is different. You know, we opted to be more practical in life. But she just fell ill all of a sudden, and this was around the time we were planning a wedding for one of my younger brothers, my youngest brother actually. I couldn't work out what was wrong with her. You know, she's going to the GP, she's had like hospital admittance, and they're like, we don't know what's wrong, and we can't point a finger at anything. And the GP's like, oh, it's muscle inflammation. And then the GP's like, oh, it's fibromyalgia. And fibromyalgia is a term that I came across in prison. If you ever Google it, it's a it's a definitive term, but it's quite vague in the sense that it doesn't pinpoint what's wrong with you, but it just says that you've got something wrong with you and you've got aches and pains and stuff, but it can't really tell you what it is. So they just give you a term and say you've got fibromyalgia. And I'm like saying to my mum, there's no way you've got that, because you've not lived your life like this. You can't be that person, you know. If you might be anemic. Pakistanis tend to be anemic, but, you know, I don't believe that. And she's going for homeopathic, you know, remedies, and she's looking into stuff like that, and nothing's working. She's had blood tests at the GP, and the GP's like, look, you're fine, you know, can't see anything wrong with you. So my mum's like sick of it right now. She's like, I'm going to go to Pakistan. That's fine, mum, go to Pakistan, because we're going to have a wedding there anyway. I hope you get better, go get some medication over there, and by the time we come out there, you'll be good. she went on Eid in 2017, I'm sure it was, and like we're just like, what's going on? Like everything's okay. And she's like, not getting better, but we didn't really know, because when we would ring, we would speak to our relatives and they were like, your mum's sleeping, she was not feeling well today. I was like, okay, think nothing of it. After about a month or 6 weeks, like one of my family members, one of my khalas rings from up north and is like your mum's not actually well, you know. And it's like, is it? Like, we thought she's recovering, but I didn't realise how serious it is. And it's like, look, your mum's actually not really well. And it's like, okay. So as a family, we're like, we need to go and get our mum, because that's all we have, you know. So my dad's like flown out there, and I remember him sending a picture of my mum. I didn't recognise this person.
No.
And I remember I was at work at PFC, and I went into the office, because we had this little office. It's probably the size from that cabinet that you've got to that wall. It's quite tiny.
Oh, really?
I remember just going behind the door. I just cried.
After seeing what your mum looked like?
I just cried.
Has she lost a lot of weight?
Wait, she was pale. She couldn't talk. You know, this is like the person that was the most active, energetic person, full of life, that, you know, was completely healthy, nothing ever wrong, you know, would never lie down for no reason. I was just like, how's my mum got so ill? You know, I can't understand this right now. I'm like, listen, we just need to bring her back. So my dad's like, listen, I'm bringing her back the next flight. My mum comes back, get her at the hospital, and we're at the airport, and we're like, Mum, we're with you right now, don't worry, we're going to be good, like, we're going to sort this out. So we get her home, and we're like, we need to take her to hospital. But when you take someone to a hospital nowadays, it's just it's a formality. They're ticking boxes on their end, and if there's something wrong, they'll see. If there's nothing wrong, they'll just send you home. So we're like, let's ring the ambulance, but we need to exaggerate this somehow. We're like, we need to get her to hospital because she's not good. And her last report from the doctor before she left Pakistan, he's saying that she's got no blood in her system. The paramedic that turns up at So Just Bees was our neighbour growing up.
No way.
We grew up with him.
No way.
He's turned up, and he's like, and I'm just thinking in my head, thinking, shukr alhamdulillah, like, you know, we've got someone that knows us, you know.
Yeah.
Out of all the paramedic forces within Berkshire and Reading, but the one person that turns up is someone that actually knows who we are. Speaking to my mum, and I'm like, I just told him straight. I said, listen, mum's not good. She's got something wrong with her. You're going to do your checks, and everything's going to come back normal. And that's what happened. Like, he's like, look, things look alright on observation, but because we're going to have to do something. He speaks to his colleague, and like, we're going to have to go in and just spin a little story. So fair play to these guys, you know. They take my mum in, spin a story, get her admitted. Doctors take the bloods, and when they take her bloods, they can start to see that something's not right. And they're like, listen, we're gonna investigate this. They're taking all her details, and from that moment that my mum came back from Pakistan to, for us, you know, she was never out of our sight. Not a single minute, not a single day, you know, was she ever alone, was she ever not there. So the time that she was in hospital, we're there every single day. Every single one of us is there. I know we have this whole stigma of when Asians go to someone's admitted in the hospital and the whole family turns up.
It's true.
But I'm going to tell you something today. We are the most luckiest people that have that.
Yeah, it's true.
Because there are people that lie in prison, that rot in prison, in hospital, that no one comes and visits. No one thinks about, no one cares about, you know, family that desert them and can't be bothered because they're too busy living their own lives. And I remember a nurse saying this to me. She goes, can I just say something? She goes, when I see you guys and your families, she goes, the hair on my arm stand up. She goes, I get goosebumps just by how you guys are. She goes, I'm fascinated by it. She goes, I can't understand how, I wish everyone was like how you guys are with your families. And we're in hospital now. It's about 2 weeks now. They're still trying to find a diagnosis for them. They don't know what's going on. And then one doctor comes in. This is Juma. And my whole family's come. My mum was here, my mum's brothers. Everyone's come to see my mum, the love, the support. You know, we're practically living in the hospital. I've gone for Juma, and they're saying, listen, the surgeon's going to come and speak to your mum. They have an inkling of what it might be, but they need to do some checks. So they come and say, we need to take a sample of your bone marrow from her back.
Oh no, they've got to do that thing when they put the injection to the spine.
Yeah. So they take a sample from her bone marrow, and I remember I've gone for Jummah and I'm just in prostration and I'm making dua, and the Imam Sahib's doing Jamaat and I'm crying. And I'm upset and I'm like, Allah, give my mum shifa, make her better. I go back and the doctor's like, my brother's like, they know what it is. So the doctor comes and he's like, your mum's basically got multiple myeloma, which is cancer, which starts in the blood within the bone marrow and spreads within the bones, and it's at stage 3. So all of a sudden I'm thinking, the doctor said everything was fine, her GP. All along the GP saying that everything's okay, nothing's wrong, even though there was discrepancies in her blood levels when they took blood tests. And now my mum's been diagnosed at stage 3 multiple myeloma, and there's no cure for it. We're starting chemotherapy today. Well, that's fine. It's fine. Sign the consent form.
Is there because my mum had stage 3 cancer as well, but with stage 3 for her, it was a stage 3 meant that it was one stage away from being like there's no cure. But are you saying that for this type of cancer, stage 3 is no cure?
There's no cure whatsoever.
Okay.
So there's no cure whatsoever for multiple myeloma. And for us, all of a sudden, it's about reading documents, going online, trying to get all the information to understand what is this. We're making phone calls abroad, we're making phone calls to Pakistan, we're saying, Mum, we're going to be all right. Doctors are saying, listen, we've still got a chance, we've got a good, we don't have any cure for this, but we have good range of medication for this kind of stuff, that we can start the chemo today, and we can start, we can prolong the life, and 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, we can work towards it. So we're like, okay, Qadar of Allah at the end of the day, the doctors are only doing what they can do, the rest is down to Allah. So they start chemotherapy, and with cancer, as you would know, it's lines of treatment. There's like first line treatment, second line, third line. And with the NHS, you can only have one line of treatment only once. If they stop that line of treatment and they go into another line, they can't revisit that one again. So they was on a line of treatment for my mum the first time round, and she got better. Her health got better and she was improving. But also at the same time, there was times where she'd gone back to hospital because she'd got pneumonia, or because her immune system was so weak. There was nothing that she could, fight. So she would get these infections, and she'd have that odd scare where she'd end up in hospital, and like, we're going with her and we're spending all that time. And we went from first line treatment to second line treatment because she started developing side effects, little dots underneath her eyelids, which the doctors were like, this is basically a side effect, we have to stop this treatment. We now need to go into the second line. Like, okay, let's go second line. Second line, let's flush the blood from her system and reintroduce it into her system. Let's do that. They start second line treatment. My mum gets really ill. This is when she starts losing her hair, and we're like, okay, this is not working. And they're like, your mum's not well enough for this second line treatment. My mum was like, I'm going to go and get my hair shaved. So my mum, making that brave decision, goes with one of my sister-in-laws to the hairdressers and gets all her hair taken off. And you come back and your mum's not really your mum anymore. You're looking at a different person, and you're just trying to understand how she's feeling. That woman, that beautiful person, that queen, all of a sudden so frail, so weak, unable to fend for themselves. And so we go from second line treatment to third line treatment, no luck. And from third line treatment to fourth line treatment, we're going within 9 months of my mum's life. We end up at a stage where the doctors are like, it's not looking good. Like, before Ramadan in 2018, my mum was like almost gone, to the extent that her bowels had stopped working. And we was in hospital, and the doctors were like, listen, if your mum's bowels don't start working, she's not going to make it through the weekend. And we're just like, everyone's just there. And I remember my brother like breaking down, like, oh, mum's like, why are you crying, son? Like, don't cry, like, everything's going to be okay. Like, where's the nurses gone and the doctors? They've made my son cry, like, let me deal with him, like, trying to make light of the situation. And even then she was still so strong, My dad's literally stood around the corner bawling his eyes out because like doctors just said, listen, things don't improve, like she's not going to make it through. And like everyone's gone home and like it's Ramadan and they've gone and made dua, and next thing you know, like my mum's systems have all started to work. And basically she's had a tube put down her throat all the way down, and she can't even speak, she can't even eat, you know, she's constantly choking on this tube that's running down her throat. And like we're helpless, we can't do nothing in that moment, you know. As humans, we feel so powerful at times in our life, you know. We think like we're macho, we're everything, we're alphas, but you know, Allah puts you in situations and says to you, look, here you are, this is your situation, what are you gonna do? What can you do? It's all in Allah's hands anyway. It's His mercy, it's His rahmah, you know. Everything is Him. So I remember just my family went home and I was at the hospital, and next thing you know, like, my mum's got better. And we're like, yes, my mum's better. My mum's come home. My mum's made suhoor for us, you know. And we're like, wow, like, you know, my mum's like, chill, relax, you know, sit down. And she's like, no, I want to do this for my sons. I want to make this, you know, I want to be involved right now. And my mum's health just deteriorated very quickly. My mum's doctors were very on hand. From the time she got diagnosed in hospital, her nurses, her doctors, they tried their best. They tried what they could from their end. They didn't leave any stone unturned. But unfortunately, like, her cancer was so aggressive that when they would apply these treatments, the cancer would fight back. In normal situations, the cancer's at defeat, where it's basically being beaten up, it's being broken away, it's chipping away at it, the medication is. But in this instance, every time they'd apply chemo, the cancer would just come back stronger, harsher, more aggressive, more pain, more symptoms, making my mum more worse. We got to the final stage where we went for some private consultation in London Clinic of Hematology, and they goes, look, whatever your doctors have tried till now has been what we would have done as well. There's one more line of treatment we can try. I remember they started that line of treatment in hospital, said, let's just get on with it, like this is all we've got right now. And from then onwards, she started to lose her limbs, like her fingers started going numb, her hands. Then she started stumbling, she couldn't walk properly, so she got a walking stick, and then within days she couldn't walk anymore. She was in a wheelchair, and we've gone to the doctors the last time she got ill, and the doctors are like, let's go in the meeting room, sit down, and like, we're sorry, but there's nothing we can do. Like, we've done what we could do, we're very sorry. You can either leave your mum here, or you can take her home, you know. And we're like, we appreciate what you've done, you know. And just going back to when my mum got diagnosed, my mum's GP wrote to my mum, explaining herself, saying, I apologise for what's happened, I'm very sorry. If you want to do anything or whatever, I'd be fully supportive of that situation. Because she'd been, I still feel today that she was negligent in dealing with my mum. She didn't diagnose her, she didn't take her symptoms seriously enough for her to investigate what really was going on. But again, it was done. Qadr, you know. Why are we going to waste our energy and time pursuing something like that when we can channel all of that into caring for our mum? So we disregarded it, because people will find themselves in situations where they think that they need to get justice from something, they need to pursue a certain thing, but they forget that you've moved away from the objective, you know. So we was like, whatever, like, it's done. There's nothing that we can really do. We need to get on with what our aim is right now, and that's obviously to look after our mum. And that final point, when they said it's done, we was like, okay, we're going to take our mum home. So we've got the care company that they provide for afterlife, end-of-life care. They gave us a bed, they gave us a commode, a wheelchair, and all the sort of like necessities that you need to have in your home for someone that's going to be at home. So we took our mum home, and it was like, amongst us as a family, we just decided that whatever we could do, we would do. But up until that point, we hadn't stopped trying. Herbal remedies, anything that had anti-cancer properties, aniseed, all these oils and these fruits and everything that we could find from research, things that were in hadith and in Quran as well, that have been known to help. We tried everything that we could try. We exhausted all avenues. My brother used to come over every day. He would make fresh juices from haldi and from all these fruits. He'd like do it himself, and he'd bring it over and be like, "Mum, drink this, have this. You need to eat. You need to do this." And he just wasn't prepared to accept that what was happening was about to happen. So the last sort of week, I remember just saying to the doctors, "How long?" And they're like, "It's a matter of days, really." So we just took Mum home. They gave us all this medication, but the medication that they'd given us is designed to speed up the process for someone's life to come to an end, because it's so powerful in terms of medication. Your opium-based morphine and everything else that goes around it, that it's basically going to kill you faster than anything. And we were just like, we're not going to give her this medication, but we're going to care for her. We're going to be as strong as we can. So we started doing shift work. Me and my brother would stay awake during the day. My dad and my other brother would stay awake during the night. So 12 hours, constantly we're all awake. My mum needs to get up. We're lifting her up ourselves. We're putting her on a commode. We're making her use a toilet, taking her to the bathroom, feeding her, giving her medication. She's incapable of doing anything anymore. For everything that she'd done for us, you know, within a very short space of time, we found that Allah had given us an opportunity to serve her, to do what we could for her, to spend that time with her. You know, like, I can never do enough shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gave us the opportunity to forget everything. I forgot business, I forgot whatever, you know, but every minute was spent there with her to ensure that we was able to do what we could for her as her sons. I leave no stone unturned. And I just remember, like, the last day, like, there was this sound coming from her throat, and it was like gurgling. It's like someone's got something stuck in the back of their throat. And I was just like, it was very unbearable, because you can't do anything in that situation, but it's such an unbearable noise, and you're thinking to yourself, how is the person feeling? But the doctors that were coming over were like, what you are feeling right now is more distressing for you than it is for her, because she's not in pain right now because of that. But the way it's making you feel is very uncomfortable, and there's nothing you can do. And at the last day, it got worse. I was just like, what is this noise? How do you make it go away? And we're just like casually thinking, Mum's got a few days, we're all here, we're doing as much as we can. I was just on Google, and I came across a term called the death rattle. Okay, what's a death rattle? And basically, what my mum was experiencing at that point was called the death rattle. So as you edge closer to death, that's one of the symptoms that occur, that you have that noise coming from within your throat. It's like something stuck there, and you're breathing, and all of a sudden my mind just clicked, and I was like, Dad, uncle, brothers, we need to chat. That's not good. Like, if you need to speak to anyone, get anyone down today, do it now, because things aren't really looking good. And that was it, really. Like, that point, family got together. My khala was my mum's best friend. My mum comes from a family of 8, but you know, her sister she was best friends with her. They grew up together. They were like gang, both of them together. Everything they would do together, you know.
Yeah.
They're talking hours on end on the phone, and they'll go to Macro and Matlan, and, you know, to the market and Blackbush and everything. They do it together.
Yeah.
I remember my khala just broke down outside in the back garden, and I was like, khala, look, right now, we just need to be strong for my mum. That's all we can do. Like, we need to completely, like, just strip our emotions out of our bodies and just chuck them to the side somewhere, because we can't let her see us in any way. And likewise with my mum, up until the very last minute, soldier, complete soldier. Like, you know, still worried about us, to the extent that I remember when someone came over to visit my mum, and in her frailest of voices, all she said to me was, have you given this person something to eat and drink? And, you know, that last my mum took her last breaths in our home, in our living room.
Were you there?
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, man. That story is so similar to one of my good friends, and his father passed away. My best friend, and it's almost identical. The story with the afterlife, the end of life care. They gave him the bed, and his family was sat around him, and he had cancer as well. And it was a long battle where he had it, and then he got better completely, and then a few years later he got it back, but it was the same thing, and they were all around him, and they got to enjoy being around him towards the end. And everyone has to die, and we know that to be the case.
Yeah.
And the fact that your mum was able to see her boys grow up, and the fact that you guys had her to raise you, and then she passed away with her family around her. There's a lot of worse situations that people have had to go through where
100%.
they're not around their family and stuff. So Aadil, I'm so grateful that you came down here today, man.
Bro, don't have to say anything.
You shared your story with us. You've never shared your story with anybody before, and the fact that you chose us to be the people to share it with, it means a lot that you have that amana with us. And also I know that when we spoke on the phone a couple of weeks ago, we was talking about the people that could benefit from your story, and ultimately that's the real benefit in anything. When you can benefit people, and you can say, look, there might be brothers out there who we could save through your story from even dying themselves, or at the very least getting themselves in a situation where they've ruined their life because of driving, or a situation where someone might just take a bit more care of their mother while they still have their mother here. And
100%.
if through your story we can inspire those people, then alhamdulillah.
Inshallah. I mean, there's so many experiences that we're going to go through in life on a daily basis. Like every day that we wake up, I've had this little thing where I don't hold on to things. Like I had this habit of, before I went to sleep, I'd be like, so what did I do today? What did I do? Like, and I'd sometimes think, how many times did I swear today? Because we have bad habits. And then sometimes I'd think to myself, what good did I do? And then I wake up and I'd be like, I'll wipe the slate clean, I'll start again. So every day is a new day.
Yeah, definitely.
Just let go of what's happened. Don't hold on to things. Don't let them hurt you inside, and them little black dots you start getting on your heart, and then they start making you bitter, and you start becoming a different person. It's about fighting, it's jihad. And
it goes without saying that because we didn't manage to talk about it on today's episode, but the fact that you were able to go through what you went through and then pick yourself back up, and now alhamdulillah you have a very successful cafe business, and on top of that you're opening very close to me as well soon, inshallah. So you're going to catch me there very regularly, inshallah. So congratulations on that. May Allah put barakah in your business. Ameen. And may you reward you for joining us. Jazakallah khair, Aadil. Barakallahu feek. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you, bro.